Bergen first down. 26 seconds to go. Long ball. Man is open. It'll go for 6. JJ Birden. JJ Birden. Touchdown.
To run 40-yard dashes.
Marcus Dash.
40-yard dash.
Marcus Dash.
40.
Marcus Dash.
Marcus Dash.
40-yard dash.
Marcus Dash.
To run the 40. Marcus Dash.
Welcome back to Running the 40. Today we were talking to former NFL wide receiver JJ Birden. Birden was drafted by the Cleveland Browns in the 8th round of the 1988 draft out of the University of Oregon. He spent the better part of his career in Kansas City Chiefs organization before finishing his career with the Atlanta Falcons. I have a lot of love for Birden as he was a small stature guy weighing 157 pounds and playing in the NFL for 9 years. He was a speedster who ran a 4.3 all throughout his career, from the time he got into the league, from the time he left the league. He was a two-sport athlete in college, running track as well as playing football. Since retiring from the game, JJ has become a motivational and opportunity speaker and trainer for all sorts of companies. And if you follow him on LinkedIn, you'll see firsthand how motivating and uplifting he really is. We talk all things Chiefs and what it's like to be a two-sport athlete, and get his game picks on the Chiefs versus Broncos game, as well as a story from the great Chiefs-Broncos rivalry. Definitely give it a listen. Hey, everybody. We're here with JJ Birden, former Kansas City Chief receiver, and obviously Oregon Duck. We can't forget about those days. JJ, how are you doing?
Doing good, Marcus. How you doing, man?
Good. Just trying to chug along here. We got the football season. It's hopefully it continues. I know we're having some hiccups here and there, but just looking forward to every Sunday and every Thursday night and Monday night too. So yeah, I always say once we get into football season, the weeks move by faster. You have things to look forward to.
I know it does. And especially if you're playing fantasy football, it just seems like it goes by really fast.
Exactly. Do you play fantasy?
Yeah, I do actually. I usually play, I'm in 2 leagues. I host a league and I'm in another league. And it's funny though, because I've been playing about maybe 17 years, but I remember when I was in the NFL and people would come up to me and say, hey, you need to catch more points for our fantasy league. And I'm like, what are they talking about? But now obviously I understand it.
That's awesome. Do you get a lot of Chiefs players just because of the connection? Do you try? I mean, obviously everyone wants a Chiefs player on their team nowadays, but just in general.
Yeah, I always try to at least get a couple because I feel I'm so in tune with what the Chiefs are doing. Like 2 years ago, I took Patrick Mahomes or 2 or 3 years, whatever it was. Nobody knew who he was, but I knew he was going to start. And he took me all the way to the championship. And that was the first time I finally won. So this year I took the running back, Claire. Yeah, I took him again because I'm like, he's going to play a lot. So he's doing good for me.
Yeah. And that's actually one of the questions I have later on is actually about Le'Veon Bell and that kind of running back situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, so first question, you spent 4 years of your career. Am I right? 4 years of your career in Kansas City?
5
years. Now, what did it mean to you to, finally see the team hoist up the Lombardi, I guess in February now, a couple months ago? What did it mean to you to kind of see Kansas City kind of on top of the league, and now everyone looks up to them as kind of the model team this year?
It's cool. It's awesome, because I've been obviously connected to the Chiefs for years. And, my years, we'd always make it to the playoffs, but we couldn't quite get over the hump. And then even after I left, they had some good years. Then I had a couple bad years. But it's nice to see the organization really put together a winning formula with their coaches and their players. And it's so cool because it's a young team and they're just going to get better and better. And when you have a franchise quarterback, because I remember during my days, you had Montana, you had Marino and Elway, and these great quarterbacks always took their teams to the playoffs. They were always in it. And to know that we have Patrick Mahomes, that tells us we're going to be always battling every single year, competing for a championship. So I'm loving it. And I just hope that, you know how when the Patriots won so much, everybody started hating them. I don't want people hating my Chiefs.
Well, I think it's one of those franchises where people will say, oh, man, I'm so tired of hearing about the Chiefs. It's one of those franchises where you can't really hate. I guess we don't have that that figure on a team that's kind of it's got a hateable, character.
Yeah.
That Bill Belichick's a hateable guy, but he's got that he doesn't really talk much. He knows the hoodie, and so it's like one of those things. Like, yeah, it's kind of just a darkness there. There's really no darkness in Kansas City. It's just a bunch of fun-loving guys.
That's true. I mean, I've only heard nothing but positive things about Andy Reid. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, he's just such a great guy, even off the field. And they continue to put quality around him. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how long this run goes.
Hopefully, the entirety of his contract, then some. I know we're seeing what Tom Brady's doing at 43, so hopefully, Mahomes had a little of that magic in him. But talk about the team this year. What do you like about this team so far in this season? And also, we kind of talked about the running back situation, the acquisition of Le'Veon Bell. We'll see him maybe for the first time on Sunday if he's active. But what are your thoughts on this team, and what does that do to propel the Kansas City Chiefs, this prolific offense already, and getting another weapon like that?
What I like about the team this year is that they're winning, but they're not winning pretty. They're kind of winning ugly. And what I mean is that when you're a Super Bowl champion and that next season comes around, every team you play wants to knock you off. Everybody's bringing their best. And so that's why it's hard to repeat, because it doesn't matter who you play. If you're a Super Bowl champion, your opponent's going to bring their best. And we recognize that right now. And the Chiefs haven't played incredible, but they're winning. And that tells me that they're still ironing things out. They're still getting things figured out, and they're still winning. And so what I see, as long as everybody stay healthy, this team will just get better and better as the season progresses. And then bringing on Bell, oh my goodness. I mean, that was such a great move, because I know from a player's perspective that Bell still has game. He's young. He still has game. And you do have to be in the right situation at the right time. And I know his attitude joining the defending Super Bowl champion that's already winning. We're going to watch Bell's performance go to another level, which is great. He's going to be a great compliment to Clyde. What's his?
Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Clyde Edwards. I keep brain freeze. Yeah, he's going to be a great compliment to him, so that when Clyde's not in, Bell's going to be producing. But also, too, he's going to be a nice mentor to Clyde as well. And so watch what happens with Clyde's learning curve, as Bell can really teach him some things that only he could really teach him.
Right. And it's interesting you say that, because, you have all these experts on Twitter saying, oh, it's going to take away from his growth. It's going to hurt Clyde's his confidence by bringing in another veteran. It's saying a lot about his play, but I don't think so. I think it's more just about getting the most amount of talent on one roster as you can. And, if it helps, mitigate the amount of carries he's getting, as a rookie, coming out of LSU, he didn't really have that many games where he was the bell cow. They threw it a lot. He was 10 to 15 touches a game. Now in the NFL, his first year, he's getting 25 carries. I mean, in multiple games, he's getting 20-plus carries already. And so that's kind of not what you want from the rookie right out the gates. I mean, was that what you would say about this?
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure, I'm confident that Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, they sat down with Clyde before this decision was made. They sat down with him afterwards, and they reassured him, you're our guy. You're our guy. Bell coming in is going to not only be a compliment to you, he's going to give us another weapon, but he's there to help you. So you pick his brain, you learn from him, and see what he can teach you that'll make you even a better back. So I'm sure that they had that conversation with him so that he's mature enough to understand Bell's going to make us better. It's all about winning. But how can I learn from Bell? What can I learn from him? And I want to seize that opportunity.
Did you have any players like that were kind of mentors to you in the NFL?
Oh, yeah. I can remember when I signed with the Chiefs, my thought was always like, okay, who's the oldest receiver? Who's the veteran? Who can I learn from? Stephon Page. Stephon Page was going into his 8th year, whatever. He had already had a great career. Oh, and I used to follow Stephon around like a little kid. It's like always in his ear, asking questions. And he was great. He was great about that, of sharing his knowledge and making me better. And in Cleveland, when I was there, it was Webster Slaughter. Webster Slaughter was only a year or two older than me, but he had already had a great career. And I was like in his ear learning from him. So, but what was interesting is when I got to Atlanta, I was the veteran. So I was kind of the mentor to some other younger receivers. So I made sure that I paid it forward, because other receivers had taught me some lessons as well.
That's awesome. And I kind of do want to talk about your career here. And this is something that, I ran track in high school, and it's actually one of the things I wanted to ask you on top of that. But
is that why you're called Dash? Is that the Dash?
Well, actually, that's actually my last name. And when I would go to track meets, they would say my name on the loudspeaker. That the guys next to me would be like, "Is that seriously your name?" I'm like, yeah, that's my last name.
That's good.
But so back in the day when you were playing, it wasn't that common where you'd see smaller guys. So when people think of old school NFL, they think of bigger, broody, like physical guys, right? And back in the day, it wasn't that common where you saw smaller track guys like yourself. And I think just names of spitball, and James Jett was one of them, another track guy who played in the NFL. But how do you think the way like Tyreek Hill, he's a big time track star in college and in high school, but how do you think you would have been utilized if you were playing in modern day football? I mean, how do you think you would have flourished like a Tyreek Hill?
Yeah. The way the offenses are today is it's different in terms of the DBs. The DBs can't do some of the things they used to do. They could literally almost maul us on the line of scrimmage, and there was a lot more contact. You don't have that today. So the receivers have a little bit of a different an advantage there. But the offenses they're like more in attack mode. You see more 4 receiver sets, 5 receiver sets. And when I played, it was 3 receiver sets, and every now and then you might see 4. So what I love about the offenses today and how I would have been used, I would have probably been moved around a lot, because when I was with the Chiefs, even during my career, I was always the guy that would learn all 4 of the positions so that the Chiefs could always move me around. They could move me from X to Z to Y to H. And knowing how offenses are attacking defenses today, I would have been that guy. Put them wherever you want to create the mismatch, and obviously give me opportunities to produce. So that's kind of how I see it, because the Chiefs tried to move me around because, Marcus, when I was playing, I was 5'10", 157 pounds.
Right.
And I'm a starter in the NFL. And I remember Al Saunders, our coach, would say, okay, we don't want you taking a lot of hits. So we're going to probably take you out of half of the runs, not all of them, because we don't want the defense to know that if you're in, it's a pass. But he said, we're going to do our best to always try to move you around and create mismatches. And so today, yeah, I would, yeah, I mean, the way they throw the ball and how often they throw the ball and the coverages they played, I would have definitely been utilized well in today's offenses.
Right. And then you also have the, I guess, the plays that Andy Reid's concocted over the years. I'm sure he didn't make these up, but he's kind of brought them back again with the kind of the jet sweep where the quarterback just tosses the receiver as they come across. Yeah,
the jet sweep. We didn't even run that. We did the reverse. And when I was in Atlanta, they just started doing that receiver screen where you take one step back and they throw it. Now they do that a lot. We were just starting to do that because we were in the run and shoot. So there's a lot of plays like that are specifically designed for the wide receiver, especially a wide receiver of my size, little guy, 4.3 speed. So it would have been great to be in the offense. Plus, they throw the ball more. They throw the ball more than they did when I played,
It's crazy how much the offenses have evolved, just the game in general, but how much the offenses have evolved in a short amount of time. You look at it in the whole scope of things, like 20 plus years. I mean, the offenses have evolved so much. It's crazy.
It really has, because when I played, you never heard of empty, where you had 5 receivers. There was nobody in the back. That was unheard of. And now every single team runs that at some point where the quarterback is back there by themselves and they got 5 people that go out, So yeah, like you said, it's really changed over the time.
Yeah. And with I guess you running track, this is something when I was in high school, I had coaches who didn't like us doing other sports, which you can read a lot in a lot of ways and see that most people go against that. So maybe it was just my luck in my high school, but running track was specifically one he did not like. He was saying it would take away from your weights. You would be instead of springtime weightlifting with the football team, you're going running track. That's taking you away from doing that stuff. But also, he was saying it would make you fast to a certain extent that wouldn't really translate to the football field. And obviously, you are a living testament of that not being the case at all.
Yeah.
And how do you think track helped you on the football field? And this is to a lot of youngsters who may have coaches giving them these kind of like decisions where they have to choose one or the other, or they can do both. How do you think that football, a track helped you?
Yeah, that's a pet peeve I have about today's. That's a pet peeve I have today about today's high school coaches and their philosophy of what to do in the spring. Whenever I'm asked, how can I improve my speed? I always ask the athlete, are you running track? I think running track and field is one of the best ways to build up your speed, to enhance your speed, And it definitely is going to transfer over into football. Like you said, I'm a living example of that, doing both sports, because track, we train differently. When you're running intervals and you're running long, sprint workouts, and you're developing speed, endurance, and that ability to, and then learning how to come out of the blocks and that explosion out of the blocks and that drive phase, and just the mental part of it too. Running a workout of like 8 200s. Mentally, you got to be strong to do that.
Yeah.
And then the competition aspect when you're on the line, and I ran the hurdles too. It's competition. You're running against you. You learn so many things from a training standpoint and a coaching standpoint, but most definitely, it certainly helps your speed. And Marcus, one of the things I would do in my NFL career was I would spend during the offseason at least a month and a half of just training like a sprinter. And the guys would kind of like, dude, you're going into your track season. I go, yeah, because that was how I maintained my speed. I came in the NFL running a 4.3. My last year, I ran a 4.3 because I always trained like a sprinter in the offseason. And it totally transferred over into the football season. So coaches who say that, they're doing a disservice to those athletes, because that athlete is going to be better equipped from a speed, a training, a physical standpoint by training with, even if they're not running in meets. Just training and working out with a track athlete is going to make them stronger and better for football.
Right. And I will say I ran track junior year. I didn't run senior year because I had to get surgery on my ankle. But from junior year, my 40 time going into going into that track season, I ran a 4.7. After that season, I ran a 4.58. So it's like, I won't say it's all track, but like that has to help, your knee drive. It's a whole different way of training you how to run, really. And that's whether you're on the field or on the track. So yeah, I will say, growing up, my brothers told me about you and James Jett. So I have an older brother who's a Chiefs fan and an older brother who's a Raiders fan. So I had these examples of when I was, when my high school coaches tell me that, they're like, dude, that's not true. JJ Birden and James Jett, these are two guys from the NFL who ran track, and obviously they're amongst the fastest of all time. And so, okay, well, there you go. So
and if you do your homework, most of the skill athletes who are in the NFL ran track.
Right.
I mean, now I don't know how it is today. I think it's still like that, but I tell you, like when I played stuff, everybody ran track. Every running back, every DB, every linebackers, that was the norm, because if you want to learn how to run fast, you need to train to run fast. And where do you do that at? In track and field, so, but this is like a little argument I have with coaches today, because they want their athletes to specialize. And think of this, when you run track too, you could be creating another opportunity. I mean, I jumped at Oregon, also played football. So I had options. I could have pursued my Olympic dream, or I could have pursued the NFL. So it was nice to have options in case something didn't work out.
Yeah, there's nice options to choose from right there. So during your playing days, from the 1990 to 1994, you were in Kansas City. You got to play with, I guess we all know Joe Montana, who some could argue he is the GOAT of all, the greatest of all time, quarterback. And I have to ask, so from that point, before Montana, we had Steve DeBerg was one of the quarterbacks that we had. We had a few, right?
Yeah.
When Montana comes over there, what was the kind of the mentality switch? And I guess I'm asking that question because I'm hearing a lot where the Buccaneers lost to the Bears last week with Tom Brady. Then a week later, they come back and they look at this totally different team. A lot of people say maybe Tom Brady, yelled at them the way he was yelling at them on the sidelines. Maybe this week during practice, he got at them. And I guess it takes a GOAT, right, in his profession to do that, to kind of have that spark to people. Was there ever a time where Montana kind of did that when you guys got Montana? It was like, okay, this is a different quarterback. We've never had someone like this before. Was there that?
Immediately. It was, you knew you were playing with a whole different level of a quarterback. And I want to tell you a quick story because I knew on the very first day of practice. Now, first, Marcus, I'm kind of enamored with the fact that I'm in the huddle with Joe Montana. I mean, I used to watch him in the 8th grade, and then we had Marcus Allen too. So I'm like this kid. I'm like, okay, this is so cool. The very first practice, first play is X hook Z post. I'm X. So I'm like, I'm getting Joe's very first pass as a Kansas City Chief. So I line up on the line to run a 12-yard hook like I've done 1,000 times. I get up to about 10 yards and Joe hits me in the back of the head with the ball. And I'm like, and I look at Willie Davis and Joe's like, come here. He goes, come here, kid. He goes, I don't wait for you to get open. I've already read the hole. I know where the defense is. I throw it before you get there. So you got to get your head around faster. When he said that, I looked at Willie and I said, oh, we're playing with a whole different level because a lot of quarterbacks will wait. They'll see if you're open. Joe would throw it so early that you automatically had to learn to get your head around and look for the ball. But it was little things like that that told me that, okay, I need to step up my game. We all need to step up our game. But when we saw Joe's professionalism, how he prepared, how he performed, it immediately lifted everybody up. And I'll tell you, Marcus, we felt Joe was the missing piece of the puzzle. We knew we got a shot now to go to the Super Bowl. And when the team has that belief, it becomes contagious and it just lifts up your game. And so that year we went right to the AFC Championship game, and he was key to that.
Well, was there a moment where, I mean, I guess I talked to Steve Bono a couple of weeks ago, and he didn't really have much to say about it. He said Montana had kind of a fiery personality, but he wasn't so much. He was kind of one of those fun-loving guys who you'd want to play with and for him, right? Yeah. He wasn't one of those guys who bark at you. I mean, he said, sure, there's moments of it, but were there any moments where there was like, oh man, like, whoa, this guy's a little too much, or you know?
No. 2 years of playing with Joe, I never saw that side of him. Joe never screamed, got upset or whatever, but he led by example, and he led in a calm way. There were times in games, like I remember we're in the playoff game and we're playing against Pittsburgh and the last drive, and Joe just kind of he comes in. He's okay, guys. Here's what we're doing. We're gonna run this. We're gonna run this. Let's march on. Let's win the game. It was the way he led. He didn't have to like, you dropped that ball. You messed up. No, he knew that if he did his job, we're gonna do our job. And so his leadership was so different. It was like he led by example, and I appreciate that because I'm the type of athlete. I don't need someone yelling at me. I already know I dropped the ball. I already know I messed up. I'm hard enough on myself. And I think sometimes athletes and coaches that do that, they don't always get the desired results, because everybody is motivated and driven differently. When Joe came up to me and said, hey, JJ, that needs to be 6 yards. That's all he needed to say. And I made sure that next route was 6 yards.
Wow. And I'm sure, and the knowledge he kind of bestowed on you, I'm sure that you took that and became a better receiver and a better coach too to other receivers that you took under your wing in the future.
Yeah, I became a better receiver because of how Joe prepared. I watched how much he studied film. And I remember when he first joined, and I would see him studying our offense all the time. And we had just brought Paul Hackett, the offensive coordinator, who ran the San Francisco 49er offense, and Joe already knew it. And I'm like, Joe, why do you always, don't you already know this? But Joe said, well, JJ, I like to memorize half of the play. So when they give me the play from the offense, they on the sideline, they only have to give me half of it. I know the rest. He said, but it gets us out of the huddles 12 seconds more. You know what I can do with 12 seconds sitting at the line, staring at the defense? So it was little things like that that made me step up my preparation, because when I get on the line and I've got to play and Joe goes black razor, he audibles, I better see what he sees, because he sees a weakness and I need to see it too. So it really helped me step up my preparation. I think that played a role in my success those last couple of years.
Wow. And it's one of those things, I watched America's Game growing up. I remember it was the Bengals and 49ers, the drive. Mm-hmm. I remember, the guys on the team, it was about to take a long drive and everyone's, in the huddle, everyone's so scared and stressed out, right? Everyone's about, it's all tense. He goes, guys, you see that? Is that John Candy? And then everyone looks back at that, and that kind of, everyone could breathe after that. Then they drove down, obviously the rest is history, but that's a true leader. That's a guy I want to play with.
And he did stuff like that. And when we were playing Denver Monday night and we were on that last drive, I just remember how relaxed he was. And he just was like cracking jokes and stuff. And I thought to myself, I said, this guy's been there, done that. This is nothing to him. He's done this 1,000 times. And I just said to myself, you got to do your job, because he's going to do his job. But but it helps you relax and play when you have a guy like that, he's been in this scenario before. Nothing's going to surprise him. Just get out there and do your job.
And do you think that kind of, I guess, same kind of mentality with Brady's kind of rubbing off on these young receivers and with the Buccaneers with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin?
Yes. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a very similar situation. And Brady's even played longer. So if those guys really embrace Brady's teaching from his perspective, it's going to make them better. And that's what I hope. I hope those guys, are coachable and not have the attitude, well, I've been playing 4, 5, 6 years. I've already, no. It's because that's what I thought. Success leaves clues. What can I learn from Joe? I hope they have that same mentality. What can I learn from Tom?
Yeah. Yeah. And so far looking good, 4-2 right now.
And that team's going to get better too.
Yeah.
That team is going to get better too.
And would you say, I guess, having Brady come over there and not have a preseason, and everyone talks about it from the rookies' point of view, the rookies haven't had a chance to play with each other or played in an NFL game, but a lot of these guys like Tom Brady, an acquisition like that, it's a 6 games in. So by this point, he would already have at least 10 games already under his belt, with preseason and all. But 6 games where they're playing it live, no preseason to kind of adjust and get acclimated with each other. How important is that the preseason and the training camp of that kind of rapport together with a new quarterback?
It's huge. It's huge. I mean, you got to get in sync and on the same page with your quarterback, and that's a process. And it happens every single day in practice. The games, there's a whole debate on the games and all that stuff. But I tell you, it's the off-season training program. It's training camp. It's running routes and 7-on-7 and 1-on-1. It's getting that timing. It's understanding how you play and where you're going to be and it's just getting that unity and get on the same page. And that's why when I see how the Bucs are playing right now, I'm like, man, these guys are still trying to figure each other out. They're still trying to get comfortable with each other. They're trying to get comfortable with the system. If they stay healthy, that team's going to be pretty good at the end of the year too.
Yeah. Yeah, and so far, I mean, 4-2. You would think that I'm sure they're happy right now with not having a preseason with a new quarterback. 4-2 that's great so far for them.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to bring it back to today. So you and I are connections on LinkedIn. So every day I'm always seeing these amazing motivational posts that you have, and also and you're a workout warrior, by the way. I've seen some of these clips of you, but kind of talk to me about what you're doing today. So what have you been doing since you hung up the cleats?
Yeah, well, since I retired in '97 from the NFL, I kind of went through this period of time like, do I want to do this or do I want to do that? Do I want to coach? And I dabbled in coaching, high school football. I coached 3 years of track in high school, and I loved it. I didn't like, you've already mentioned one thing, I didn't like the discussions with parents and coaches about why my kid should not run track and why he should. I mean, these things drove me crazy, and I thought, wow, this is not like it used to be. So I decided not to do that, and I had a couple businesses I ran forever. But now then I got into becoming a speaker, and I love it because I feel that with my experience, and you know my story. I mean, I played 9 years, 5'10", 157. I have not, Marcus, been able to find a player who had an NFL career as long as me that was under 160. So that's kind of rare for someone like me. But I thought, how many people have dealt with feeling like the underdog, feeling like the odds are against them, have dealt with obstacles and challenges? That's been my life. And so speaking gives me the opportunity to share that content to lift people up and help them understand, hey, anything is impossible, but here's what it's going to take. Here's what I get, and so can you. So speaking allows me to do that, and I love it. And like you mentioned too, I'm 55 years old, once an athlete, always an athlete. I still work out. I'm still taking care of myself. I had a lot of injuries from my playing days. I've had 8 or 9 surgeries, and I work with a health and wellness company called Isogenics to keep my nutrition right. So what you see me posting about, that's me, because I'm a firm believer that if you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. So I really love the fact that we have social media allows us to touch so many lives out there. And that's what I love to do.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I do want to ask this because you see guys like the Rock, for example, who says he lifts now more than he lifted during his wrestling days and his football days. Is that the same for you, or would you say you could lift, probably bench more than what you could back in the day, or?
That's a good question. I'd say a couple of years. When did I finally? About 5 years ago, I used to kind of still go heavy, and I was definitely stronger than I was in the NFL. I've had a couple of shoulder surgeries, so I've really toned it down. I don't go as heavy anymore. But here's one thing that's interesting. I weigh now. I keep my weight around 170, 172. I did one time get up to 180 something. That's why I got on this nutrition program. I was like, that's too heavy. But here's one of my regrets is that I wish that I had gained a little weight every year when I was in the NFL because I always wanted to play a little heavier, like maybe 68 or maybe 70, but I was always worried about losing my speed. Right. And I probably wouldn't have lost my speed. As one trainer told me, one strength coach for the Oregon Ducks, Jim Ratcliffe, he said, JJ, you should have gained a pound or two a year. So by the time you got to your 8th, 9th year, you would have been running around 170 or 72, and you've been able to play with that weight. So that's the only regret I have there. But no, it's when I had my last knee surgery, the Atlanta Falcons, Dr. Bishop said, JJ, don't stop working out. Take care of your health. And he said, you will delay some of the surgeries you're going to end up having. So I never forgot that. That's one of the reasons why I try to live a healthy lifestyle.
So, okay, now we're going to go to the final segment, which is the final 40-yard dash. The show's Running the 40 with Marcus Dash. This is the final 40 here.
I love your name. It reminds me of The Incredibles. Dash.
Yeah, that's the when everyone's like, what's your name? I was like, Dash. And I like The Incredibles. Like, oh, okay, that works. That works.
Good.
So you kind of alluded to it already, but what was your fastest 40-yard dash?
Fastest 40-yard dash I ever ran was a 4.33 when I signed with the Chiefs. And I would generally say between 4.33 and 4.36. But here's what's really cool. I tore my ACL ligament my rookie year with the Browns. Before that, I ran a 4.39. After recovering, rehab, working out, I came back and ran a 4.33. My 40 time dropped because of all the training and the weights I put in over that year, so that was pretty cool to come back faster.
Wow. When that happened, were you training a lot before that? Did you already know your time was going to be faster by the time that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was doing a lot of intense workouts because I knew I'm a smart enough guy that knows that if the Chiefs are bringing me in and they want me to run a 40, we're track guys. What are we going to do? I'm going to train for that 40, like It's the 100-meter finals in the Olympics. So I prepared for it. So I knew I was going to run a fast 40. And that's a lot of times I would tell athletes, I'd say, if you know you're going to run a 40, then you need to create a workout that's designed to allow you to peak for that 40. Right. Because unfortunately, it matters to them and whether they're going to draft you and where you're going to be drafted. It really does matter. So I'm like, why not train for it?
Who was the fastest player you ever either went against as a corner or played with as a receiver?
I would probably say there's two guys I went against that were really fast. One was Darryl Green.
Wow.
He ran a 4.19, I think, and Deion Sanders. And Deion was interesting because, man, he had amazing catch-up speed. You might beat him on the line and have him beat. And he was so fast, he would bait the quarterbacks and give you a lead. And when the ball was thrown, he would close like that. And I could not believe how incredible his football speed was, really. It's like whenever I was in a game, I could always tell I was faster than most of the DBs. But when I was going against Deion, I could tell he was faster than me.
That's awesome. And I'm sure he talked more than most of the corners you went against.
Yeah, he talked the entire game. I played him the first time I played him. I was in Atlanta, and Deion was in Dallas, and he had been hurt the first game. He hadn't played yet, so he's playing against us. And I knew what he was going to do. And let me tell you something. He talked the entire game. So my game plan, Marcus, was to not say a word to him. I didn't speak to him the entire game. At the end of the game, the fourth quarter, he goes, "Come on, man, say something." He goes, "You're the quietest receiver I've ever been around." I go, "Deion, that was my game plan."
That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. And it's funny because he's probably wondering that during the game too. His mind's probably not only on the game, but he's also thinking like, when's this guy going to talk to me?
But what was interesting was the other receiver on the other side, my buddy Bird Emmanuel, in case he sees this, He was going into his first or second year. And I said, dude, Deion's going to try to get in your head. Don't let him do it. So Deion was switching back and forth, and Deion couldn't get in my head. And they switched over there. All of a sudden, I see flags thrown and whistles thrown. He's fighting with Bert Emanuel. And Bert comes to the huddle. I go, man, I told you what he was going to do. He goes, well, I just couldn't resist.
What was that, like the reputation he had? That everyone knew that was Deion's thing.
Yeah. But you know what? He was the coolest guy off the field or after the game. He was so cool, so down to earth. So you kind of knew that when the lights came on, Deion turned to a different person. He was there to do his job. But I had much respect for him because he was so cool off the field.
Yeah, that's awesome. And he's doing great things with Jackson State right now.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It'll be exciting to see the journey and see if he can really impact that program.
Yeah, for sure. And the staff they have is an all-star staff right there. That's a Hall of Fame staff.
I haven't seen the staff yet. Have you seen some of the guys that are on there?
Warren Sapp is the D-line coach, I believe.
Oh, wow.
They have a few other names. I mean, Warren Sapp's the one that stands out to me. But yeah,
cool. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so next question: who threw your first? You'll get this in a second. But who threw your first touchdown in college?
I only had one touchdown in college.
That was your only one.
I had one touchdown my senior year. Bill Musgrave threw it to me.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
So Marcus, my senior year, I had one touchdown, 19 catches. Those are not NFL caliber stats. You know, and that's why I always tell wide receivers, don't worry about your stats. You just do your job and they'll find you.
Was it not a passing offense, or was a scheme? What was the reason?
It was my senior year. I twisted my ankle against UCLA. I think the third or fourth game. I missed like 4 games, and then we were rotating. We had some really good freshman receivers like Terry Obie, Tony Hargay, 2 guys who did end up going to the NFL, had short careers. So we were just kind of rotating around. I was a starter, but I missed those 4 or 5 games, and that really kind of hurt me statistically because I think at the first game, 2 games, I had like maybe 19 catches, or not 19, sorry, 10 catches. But that again was why I never thought I was going to play in the NFL. I didn't think I was going to get a shot. So even when I got the call from the Cleveland Browns, when Marty Schottenheimer called me, he goes, "Hey kid, this is Marty Schottenheimer." I was like, "Who is this? Seriously?" I mean, I didn't believe the NFL was going to draft me. I didn't even know who Marty was, you know. So, yeah, and I go on to play 9 years in the NFL. See, let me tell you something. This is something I'm proud of. Oregon has a great tradition. They have a lot of great wide receivers. I mean, you know, they've had amazing statistics. Excluding Ahmad Rashad, there's no wide receiver at Oregon who went to the NFL that had as long as an NFL career as me. Think about that for a second. All these guys that are Huff and, you know, just all these guys that had amazing stats.
I can think of Sammy Parker and DeAnthony Thomas.
Sammy Parker, great career, did not play as long as me. Patrick Johnson, great career, did not play as long as me. These guys had way better careers than me at Oregon. And the point, I'm not saying this to down those guys. I'm just trying to make the point. I tell everyone, don't worry about the stats. You just put in the work. You do your job. And so when you get your shot, you got to take advantage of it. You know. So yeah, you'll never see me anywhere on the Oregon record books, but I had a longer career than most of the receivers coming out of there.
Yeah, and also, I mean, for a guy who's 5'8", 160, you know, that's amazing that you had the longest career of all those other Oregon guys in a short, small stature. You know, that's insane. That's something that I will be sharing this with my nephew. Stuff like this is because, you know, he plays quarterback and he's probably going to be. I hope he's taller than me, but he's a freshman right now. He's about 5'6". I hope he's taller than me, but he'll.
That's what I was my freshman year, 5'6". Yeah.
And if I told him 5'10", he would love that. But it's just one of those things that we get into this. We're always looking for everything. We're looking at numbers and the metrics. Quarterbacks say, "Oh, you can't play quarterback if you're not over 5'10". And we're seeing Kyler Murray breaking that down right now in the NFL. But it's just people look at these, oh, you can't play quarterback, you're this. It's ridiculous. I mean, we get to a point in where glad the game's changing where they're starting to get more guys who are I guess, a smaller stature like yourself. We're starting to get more of those kind of guys. But for the longest time, everyone's always been looking at metrics and these standard numbers based on what? It's good that the game's kind of, going in the right direction where it's not really looking at your sizes you out of position.
Yeah, you can't measure heart. You can't measure how bad somebody really wants it. And those athletes like that who fit into this category where you're too small to this, they got to make sure they prove people wrong. They got to make sure they do their work and that they give the coaches, the scouts, the teams a reason to put them on the field, a reason, because think about everything that I went through, all the challenges, ups and downs. But when I got on that roster, I had to show them I could play.
Right.
And before that happened, I put in time in my training, in my preparation, all that. So I knew that when I got that shot, I had to take advantage of it, because if I didn't, they were going to say, oh, see, told you, too small, told you. But no, I made sure they didn't say that. I made sure they were like, I can remember when the Chiefs came up to me and said, how would you like to start in the NFL? And I was like, are you kidding me? I'm just trying to make the team. They're like, no, we want to start you. And I started the last 5 years of my career. And I wasn't even, I never even imagined that to happen.
That's awesome. Those are true stories that a lot of people don't know about these kinds of stories in the NFL. And that's part of the reason why I launched this show is because I want to be able to tell the stories that people don't know about. It's these stories. Especially the young kids who don't, they're on their phones all the time and they think football started in 2015. So
yeah. Well, that's why I share what I share. I shared a post this last week on LinkedIn showing all the statistics of what it takes to make the odds of making it to the NFL. A lot of people don't even know that, even let alone, the average career of an NFL player average size. And so I shared that to make 2 points. One is to help that kid, whoever's out there that's got that dream, forget the stats, forget the odds. You stay focused on what you got to do. But also to enhance my message to when I'm talking to people about what it's like to be the underdog, what it's like to deal with adversity and challenges and setbacks. I know from personal experience, just implement the strategies and maybe you can have the kind of success you're looking at having.
Right. Yeah, no, and for sure. And like I said, when I go on LinkedIn and I see your posts, always motivational. It's always like, yeah, I feel better today after reading that.
I appreciate it.
So next question. Your longest touchdown catch came against the San Diego Chargers in 1990. Question is, who threw that ball and how long was that catch?
Steve DeBerg threw it. It was the third play of the game, and it was 90 yards. And it's definitely one of my highlights of my career. Because I remember that play. I remember it like it was yesterday because that was my first year with the Chiefs. And I remember we were working on that play during the week, and Joe Pendry, the offensive coordinator, he says, hey, JJ, we're going to have you over here. We're going to have Robbie go in motion. And he told us, he says, okay, Steve, send Robbie in motion. He needs to be directly behind JJ, so hopefully we'll confuse the DBs. He said, JJ, you take one step and you fly. That's all I want you to do. He goes, you fly. And so first play of the game, Christian McCoy gets stopped. Second play of the game, he gets stopped again. Then they call it. The weirdest thing about football is this. You practice these plays all the time. They never really go the exact way you expect. This play went exactly that way. Bobby goes in motion, they hike him. I stutter. Those DBs split, and I just go, boom, and I look up, and I'm like, oh, my goodness. So that moment when I reflect on that, I think about the preparation during the week and how everything had to go perfectly, and it certainly did.
And was that supposed to be a game script? Was that supposed to be a third play coming out the game, or no?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't expect them to call it. It was kind of one of those plays that if we're in the right situation, we're going to call it. And it was the third play of the game, and it happened so fast, Marcus, that when I saw when Robbie goes in motion and I see the DBs confused on who to cover, and I go boom, and I take off, and you see that ball coming, it's like your heart jumps. It's like, oh my goodness, this is happening. You better take off. And one thing I did know was that Sammy Seal was the fastest player on the San Diego Chargers. And he's behind me. And I was looking for him because I know that kid can fly. So it was nice to make it to the end zone.
Okay, so fast forward a couple of years. We're going to 1994. In 1994, you had 4 receiving touchdowns. You only trailed one other player in receiving touchdowns on the Chiefs. Who was it?
Willie Davis.
Wow. All right.
Was it Willie?
Yeah, it was Willie Davis. Yep.
Yeah, I think Willie had about 6 or 7.
He edged you out by 5-4.
Okay. Yeah, that was the frustrating. I'll tell you, that was the frustrating part when I was with the Chiefs. It's like we didn't have a lot of opportunity to score because it was such a ball controlled offense. It's like if we scored, we really had to make something out of nothing. That was the frustrating part. And yeah, I think I could have caught 70, 80 balls a year, but this offense wasn't designed for that, So, so when I would see these guys catching all these balls, I would I'd like to catch 60, 70 balls a year.
If only, if fantasy was more mainstream back in the day too.
Yeah.
Because it seems like, I guess, kind of career wise, I would say you probably had more of a Deshaun Jackson-esque kind of, if you were to kind of put it in today's terms, I guess. Yeah. Would you say that?
Yeah, absolutely. Just, but it's weird because my career at the beginning, I was the deep threat. Then I changed into the guy they could move everywhere because I wasn't like the possession receiver, but it was I know that if we call these plays, we can put JJ everywhere. So I started catching a lot of medium routes, from ends and curls and all that. And then Willie started going deep a little bit more than me, but that was just kind of the design of the offense and how things started working out.
Yeah, and I was watching a clip from it was this Steve Bono. It was his first Monday night start. It was against the Dolphins. Or no, it wasn't his first Monday night start, but it was it was a game where he broke the all-time passing attempts in Chiefs history. He didn't really want to talk about that game because it was a bad game. But I remember watching that game. I think you had a lot of targets that game and a lot of receptions that game. I don't remember the numbers, but I just remember watching. I was like, oh man,
I think I had 10 catches that game.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I had 10 catches that game, and I scored that touchdown where I kind of jumped around the cone.
With no score, 4-man rush. Bono stays in the pocket. And Bono fires. The catch is made for the touchdown. It's JJ Birden. Oh, and JB Brown slipped, fell as Birden made the move to the outside.
And that was a rare feeling for me. I'm like, God, 10 catches. Keep throwing me the ball,
That's awesome. Okay, so final question here. We're going this week. Chiefs are playing the Broncos. As you know, it's one of the biggest rivalries. It'd be I would say either Chiefs Raiders or Chiefs Broncos. First question, prediction: who do you think wins on Sunday?
Do you really want to know?
I do.
Chiefs are going to win. The question is, how bad are they going to beat the Broncos by?
It's supposed to be a snow game too. As far as the forecast shows, it's going to be a snow game.
Oh, that could make it even more competitive then, because you lose your advantages when you're a high flying offense, when you can't do some of the things you normally do when it's snowing. So that could be interesting.
Mm-hmm. The last part of this question is, I mean, over the 5 years you played with the Chiefs, what was kind of the most memorable Broncos Chiefs, rivalry story that you have over those 5 years?
Well, one I would say is the 5 years I was there, we played the Broncos, I think 10 times. And if memory serves me correctly, I think we lost to them 8 or 9 times. Wow. And it was always, Marcus, the same way. We would be leading, Elway gets the ball with 2 minutes or less, and they would drive down the field. It was like the same scenario every single time. But that one last year when we had Montana on the team, it was a little different. And that Monday night game is one that I see now. It's always on ESPN. But what I remember about that game, it was a classic battle, but we're leading it towards the end. And then we fumble the ball. Then Elway and them gets the ball back. And I'm thinking oh, here we go again. Then they fumble the ball. And then somehow I think the score has changed. The point is, it was less than 2 minutes left. We had the ball. And we're on the 10 or something like that, or the 20. And all I remember is this. There's 2 thoughts I had. First one was oh my goodness, this looks familiar. There's no way we're going to win. And then here he comes, Joe Montana. I'm oh, wait a minute. We got this guy. And it was okay, guys, we're going to run this. We're going to run this. We're going to march down the field. We're going to win this game. It's cold. Let's get out of here. That's what he said. And we marched down the field and we won the game at the end. And that was obviously so memorable because of all the defeats in the past. But it makes a difference when you can look in the huddle and look in the eyes of the guy who's been there, done that. It certainly lifts up your confidence in knowing that you're going to win.
Wow. And was that in Denver or was that in KC?
That was in Denver. It was that Monday Night Classic. And I remember the very last play. And here's what's great about that play. Last play of the game, 2-3 minutes or 2 seconds, whatever is left on the clock. And they called X corner. So I was the first read. So Montana goes back. I'm double covered. So he just gets off me and he scans and he hits Willie Davis, who's like the third or fourth read in the corner, only where he can catch it. He makes the catch, gets in, and we win the game. And see, and that's the things that people don't see. They don't know that Willie was the third or fourth read. But that's what made Montana great, was that he had the ability to go through his progression, know where the weaknesses was, and throw it to the right guy, and he did on that play.
Wow. That's all. And I will say, I guess, very differently, right? Because we watched the game on Monday night where it was the 3rd and 12 at the end of the game where Mahomes rolled out. Byron Pringle, he's running a 5-yard little hitch route. He sees Mahomes on the other side of the field. He rolls around and follows his quarterback. And I guess Pringle's probably his 5th option on that play. So similar, but it shows the great quarterbacks. They're scanning the field. They're looking for all their other options. Obviously, Montana and Mahomes are very different playing styles. But yeah, it shows how good the great ones are, because they look on. They're 1 and 2 reads. Most quarterbacks get flustered. They get to take a sack or not do that. So
right. And Mahomes, what is this, 4th year? Is it his 4th year or 3rd year? What year is it for him?
This is his 3rd year starting, 4th year. Yeah, 4th year.
He's going to get better. He's just only going to get better. I mean, that's the thing that's kind of just gives me chills when I think about his potential, is that he's doing all this and he's still learning how to play at that level. So what we're going to see from him these next so many years, you're going to continue to see him progress, continue to get better, because he seems like that type of athlete that's not content. How can I get better? Where can I improve? So I think some awesome years are definitely coming from him, as better than what you've already seen.
Right. Yeah, and as a Chiefs Kingdom, we've earned it. So
yeah, I know we have earned it. I mean, come on, And what was so cool was that I feel like I'm still on the Chiefs. It's like last year was so special because I felt like I was on the team. It's like that Super Bowl was for me, was for you, it's for all Chiefs fans who have been we've dealt with disappointment for so many years, almost just so close. So it was really nice to enjoy that. But I'm ready for a 2, 3, 4, 5 year run.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'll be seeing you at the parade next year.
Yeah.
All right, JJ. Well, thank you for coming on. It's honestly, to have you on the show, it's honestly an honor. And for someone who, as a kid, I'll tell this funny story. So back in the day when it was dial-up internet, my brother would go to Kansas City Star's message board before Twitter, all that stuff. So Kansas City Star's message board. His username was JJ Birden 89. And I remember logging on the computer and seeing this Kansas City Star stuff up and seeing JJ Birden 89. Like, oh, who's that? I was a little kid. But I was telling my brother that I was gonna, and that was my first of knowing who JJ Birden was. And then as I grew up, my brother showed me, this guy ran track. This guy's gonna be a small stature guy, just like you. Using you as inspiration for me as a slot receiver for myself. But my brother was telling me, I was about to interview you today. It was like, when I was on Kansas City Star message board back in the day, everyone always thought they thought I was JJ Bird just because my username was JJ Bird 89.
That's good.
It's just funny how nowadays you got the check marks on Twitter and stuff. Everyone knows who JJ Bird is. But back then, JJ Bird 89 was like, oh, this is definitely him. This is JJ Birden. So I thought you'd find that funny.
That's really cool. Over the years, I've gotten on some of the chief message boards, and I think I use my name. Yeah, I have my name. And I always get the question, are you really him? Prove it. Who are you? And they would start asking me all these questions, and I always knew the answer, but I always thought that was kind of funny because I'm like, I'm really him.
This is me. Well, JJ, thanks a lot for coming on. I would honestly love to talk some football with you again in the future, if you'd be willing to come on.
Sounds good. Thanks, man. And thanks for having me on. And, let's go Chiefs, man. Let's close out and get another ship this year.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's keep going. Let's start this dynasty.
All right.
All right. See you, JJ.
Take care, Marcus. All right.
Have a good one.